You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hey everybody, sorry I'm late, but my watch stopped. It had to. It was running faster all week. So it's Tuesday. It's all started again. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. It is Tuesday, November 15th, I think. Sure. We are already halfway through the month of November. We're in the penultimate month of 2022. Man, this year is flying by. But yeah, we are going to talk today about Star Wars, but not so much about Andor in the content of what's been going on with Andor, but more of the quality of Andor. But we're going to get to that. And, you know, if the quality of Andor is going to change what's going forward for Star Wars, or if it'll be just a blip on the screen. So, hey, Ed, Triple B, Jeff, Slipknot, good to see you guys. Glad you can make it. But you guys are going to, you are welcome to jump in on the conversation. I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on it when we get to it. Before we get into that, though, I want to tell you guys about something special going on tomorrow afternoon. During Comics Collectibles, there are going to be 4 books offered. Now, these 4 books are very special because they are going to be sold at best offer. So, and these are some good books, but they're going to be sold at best offer. And they're basically there to raise money for the widow of a comic publisher and writer Drew Ford. Drew passed away last month from complications from COVID. He actually had driven over to a storage unit to work on some books and didn't get out of his car, ended up passing out in his car. When they found him, they took him to the hospital and he was pronounced brain dead. There's a fund to raise money for his wife, Kiki. They've been married 12 years. And to help with that and for the money to go to that, they're going to offer up these 4 books. There is a signed copy of Dunkirk from the pages of Combat, signed by Walt Simonson. There is a, I should have had this up earlier, but there's also Wasted Lands, Amazing Tales #1, signed by Mark Rawdon and Dave Dorman. So you get a Dave Dorman signed book for that. The Army of Darkness, 1979, #3, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle homage cover, and it's signed and remarked by Ken Hazer. So he drew an additional picture on there. So Army of Darkness fans, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, that's something for you. And the limited edition Dynamic Forces exclusive cover for Star Wars #1 when Marvel got it. So those 4 books are going to be up, and they're going to be at best offer. So, it's not a matter of these are going to be super high or they're setting these these insane prices. They're putting them out there to sell so that we can raise some money for Drew's widow. And so if you get a chance to tune in tomorrow during Comics Collectibles with Rex and John, that's right after my show tomorrow, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and you can bid on those books. And also, they're going to be doing a CGC graded comic giveaway tomorrow as well. So, really good reason to tune in tomorrow. So, like you guys don't anyway, right? I mean, you're going to stick around for it, but so yeah, check that out tomorrow. And there's a GoFundMe. I don't have the link to the GoFundMe right now, but they will have it tomorrow. It's on our social media pages. You can find it, and that's if you want to just donate directly, you can do that as well. So I appreciate it, guys. Let's talk about DC Comics, or DC Film, as you want to put it. David Zaslav, the new head guy at Warner Brothers Discovery, had a conversation this morning, a recent earnings call, stuff like that. And he was talking about the different aspects. And he talked about DC. And he said of DC that it's a hugely undervalued asset. Disney did a wonderful job with Marvel. But if you looked at Marvel and DC 10 years ago, you would have said DC is good or better. But Marvel is a connected universe. It has a Bible. The key was having one person following everything. All of Marvel is one place. You don't wake up and find that there has been a Batman TV show someplace. Now, that's not the most cohesive conversation. And he goes on to say, DC is one of the biggest opportunities this company, and that's where he ends the sentence, which is kind of weird, but he goes on to say, our company is a creative company, and so we found two great guys, which would be filmmakers James Gunn and producer Peter Safran. You will see a lot of growth around DC. We haven't done a Superman movie in 13 years, and the idea is to drive the hell out of DC, which is what they're going to do. So, again, not the most cohesive statement. There's the GoFundMe in the chat. Thank you, Jay or Kyle, whoever put that in there. Ken, good to see you. So what Zaslav is talking about there, and it's funny, he credits Disney, but I look at it as Marvel started putting this stuff together themselves, and then Disney came in and bought it. So it's not quite, Disney did it. I think, Fahey put it in place, and then Disney was smart enough to go, let it go, let it keep working. So Zaslav is obviously coming in and saying, okay, we need to follow the Marvel pattern. And I know a lot of guys have said that, where others have come in, like Walter Hamada wanted to do something different. Walter Hamada wanted to go a different direction. And now Walter Hamada is making deals with Paramount to do 2 movies over there because he's no longer with the Warner Brothers. It says Disney funded would probably be more accurate. Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the smartest thing Disney did, was they wrote a check and said, go do what you do. They didn't come in, and they did that with Pixar as well. They kind of went, go do what you do. We're going to just give you the money for it, and then we're going to take the money at the end. But you keep doing what you're doing. You stick doing that. Stay to it. But so Zaslav is talking about that, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of compression. It's why we're seeing stuff like Batgirl disappear and the shows on the CW start disappearing and things like that. Because if you think about it, it's not really a cohesive universe. You have all of these different incarnations. You have the Flash in the movies and the Flash on TV, and you got, Superman here and Superman there. You got, the Superman and Lois Superman, and you've got, and then you also had Brandon Routh back as Superman in the CW series as well. And then you've got Henry Cavill as Superman, and then they were working on a Superman movie with an African-American lead. And yeah, 27 Batmans. And that's what he seems to want to get away from. The problem is that, he can kill Gotham Knights and Stargirl and all of this stuff, but he still has multiple universes existing that are making big money. You know, is he going to have, the Matt Reeves stuff is supposed to be on its own. The Todd Phillips stuff is supposed to be on its own. Are they going to continue that? Is it going to be the Joker universe over there, the Batman universe over there, and then the DC universe over here? And will the DC universe have a Batman and Joker in it? Will the Matt Reeves version of Batman, his universe, have a Joker in it? Well, yeah, we kind of got that already with Barry Keoghan, popping up in the Batman. So, follow the Marvel model, unless he's going to find some way to merge the Matt Reeves Batman, the Robert Pattinson Batman, with the Henry Cavill Superman. You're still going to have multiple versions. Or, because Gunn came out and said that one of the things he loves about DC is the interaction between Batman and Superman. So he's going to want that. He's going to want that back on screen. So, and Henry Cavill and Robert Pattinson are probably good age equivalents, but, are they going to merge those? Because it's up until now, it's been keep them separated. That was going to be its own universe. And I don't think Superman works in the Matt Reeves setting. You have this gritty noir movie that really got my attention. And then you've got, big superhero flying aliens with capes. Those really don't mesh together very well, do they? So Zaslav is talking a lot, and there's supposed to be this 8-year plan they're putting together. I'm just kind of curious what they're going to do about all that, because what Zaslav is saying doesn't quite match up to what he currently has in production. Slip says the most important universe is the Snyderverse. I don't know if I agree with you or not on that, Slip. I like the characters out of the Snyderverse. I like Cavill as Superman. I liked Affleck as Batman. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, Jason Momoa's Aquaman, and all those. Most of those are continuing forward. I am not a fan of Ezra Miller as the Flash. I haven't been, regardless of his legal issues. That didn't click for me for Barry Allen. So, did you say a gritty new horror movie? If so, may I ask what it was? I don't think I said a gritty new horror movie. Must have said something different. Sorry, bud. Slip says, whatever is most popular should be the main focus. Well, Zaslav has been pretty clear that he wants it to be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. He sees them as the hinge pins of DC, and it's true. They are the big three. And if you have successful Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman movies, you've got a universe. If they cross over, you have a universe. It's that simple. Werpenstein says, Watchmen was decent other than that love scene. Yeah, no. Snyder makes some good movies, but he makes a certain type and tone of movie that isn't where DC wants to go. They want to go with a lighter touch. They want to go with more of an Aquaman, Shazam, Black Adam touch. Slip says, I don't see the Matt Reeves Batman or Joaquin Joker series having much longevity. I agree with you on the Joker. I think that Todd Phillips doing a sequel is surprising. I didn't think he was going to, but I don't see him going past a sequel. The Matt Reeves Batman, they are expanding on that like crazy. They've already got a Penguin series and an Arkham Asylum series in the works at HBO Max. And then they're already talking about doing more, whether it's movies or spin-offs about Scarecrow, Clayface, and Professor Pig. So, yeah, they're actually moving the Matt Reeves stuff forward. They just signed this big deal with him to kind of keep him in the Warner Brothers fold. So, let's see. Producer says, I think Matt Reeves' Batman might have to get into the fantastical to keep it going. Now, see, I think if they want to keep them separate, they could, because there's enough stuff they could do outside and keep it grounded outside of the fantastical. Yes, some of Batman's villains are a bit out there. You might be able to get away with Mr. Freeze. Poison Ivy is pushing it a little bit. Killer Croc is definitely pushing it. But if you are doing villains like Joker, Riddler, Penguin, Ra's al Ghul, Bane, all of those are grounded enough that you could keep in that universe. And if you want to expand it outside of just Batman and his villains, there are enough grounded DC characters that you could continue it. You could bring in the Question or Manhunter. Is it Manhunter? Yeah, Manhunter. There's plenty of Green Arrow even would work in that universe. But would they use them is the real question. Ed says, I feel the opposite. I think Matt Reeves' Batman is fantastic like it is. I love the more realistic detective Batman approach. I really hope they stay on target and keep that universe going just like the first one. Otherwise, it's going to get campy like the rest of them. I agree with you. I think the Matt Reeves universe needs to stay grounded. I absolutely agree with you on that. And I'd want them to. But I think that's what I'm saying, is I think there is a lot of opportunity to bring in characters that continue to be grounded. The only place it becomes an issue is if they want to do a Batman Superman setting. And then you have to ask, do you cross Robert Pattinson over? Do you keep Ben Affleck around? I know that they were going for a Michael Keaton return, but to me, the Michael Keaton return only makes sense if you're doing a Batman Begins. And I think Batman Begins would be a mistake. Not Batman Begins, Batman Beyond. I think Batman Beyond would be a mistake because, sure, when you're talking to comic fans who grew up on cartoons and stuff, a lot of them love Batman Beyond. There is a good size following for Batman Beyond, but it's not equivalent of the following of Batman. Your average person on the street doesn't know who Terry McGinnis is. They know who Bruce Wayne is. And if you're going to put a movie out as Batman, you're going to want it to be as approachable to a biggest audience as possible. And you can do that with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They're starting to be able to do that with Aquaman, which is amazing because for the longest time, he was the butt of all jokes. Craig Ferguson did a bit on his show about Ask Aquaman, and he would dress up in Aquaman as Aquaman. Or the movie Entourage did a whole thing about an Aquaman movie. He really was the butt of jokes. and then you put a serious, a popular actor, you do a serious movie, and you make him look like a badass, instead of a guy in orange and green. I mean, Jason Momoa made the orange and green look good. I mean, just look up on the shelf there. It's pretty amazing. Warpenstein says it only took one movie to make Miles Morales a star. Did it? Hey, Lyle, how you doing? I think if you put out a Spider-Man movie with Peter Parker, then it's fine. You put a Spider-Man movie out with Miles Morales, you're going to get a lot of people not knowing who Miles Morales is, even with Across the Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse, because yes, it was popular, but it wasn't as popular. It wasn't as major as a Spider-Man movie. People know Spider-Man as Peter Parker. And I'm not looking at it as from a storytelling point of view. I'm looking at it from a business point of view. Yeah, so that was exactly, yeah, James Cameron was going to direct Aquaman and Entourage. So I think right now these guys are looking at what's going to make them the most money. And where we can sit back and go, well, that doesn't matter. They should be telling good stories. Well, it's great to tell good stories if people go see it. There are some amazing movies out there that makes no money because, they don't play to the big audience and stuff. And if you don't play to the big audience. Now you look at Black Panther. Black Panther's doing great. They introduced the character in Captain America Winter Soldier. They make him look good. They put out the movie. It does great. The sequel's doing great. They built it right, But Miles Morales has been introduced in an animated movie. And as much as, again, fandom loves animated movies, there is still a huge chunk of the populace that doesn't go to see animated movies. So they don't know who Miles Morales is, and you can't look at ticket sales because movies like this, fan bases like comic fans and stuff like that, they will go see a movie multiple times. So when you see, it made 500 million, it made 600 million, how many of those are unique views? I'd say probably less unique views than if, per ticket sale than you'd see in something like, your average drama thing. These kind of movies get repeat sales, but it doesn't mean that it's going to grow past that. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and take our first break. Oh, wait. So what I'm hearing is that for DC, it's make the comics and don't make a movie, but you've been on the record the other way for Marvel. So what I'm hearing is that for DC, it's... You're mute.
I've been saying be the comic or be nothing for a long time.
Yes.
And what you just said was that DC needs to make the comics the movies, whereas you've been on the record the other way saying that Marvel needs to just tell good stories. And here's my question.
DC needs to make just good stories.
Right, but you're saying you can't do Batman Beyond because people don't know Batman Beyond was unless they're people who are into a certain thing. You need to stick to the comic character. So here's my question, Dan, and this is the question, and it'll tie back into what you're going to talk about with Star Wars. I promise you. Does success of the franchise give you more or less leeway when it comes to the content you choose as your source material? Or does it confine you more? Because now people have come to expect a certain thing.
See, I think you're going outside. When you say do the comic, you're saying you're adapting a specific comic. If you're doing Civil War, do the actual Civil War comic. That's what your argument's been. And mine is no, you just need to tell a good story. But I'm saying that when you have a franchise like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, people go in expecting Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. If you bought tickets to go see the Rolling Stones and you get there and Adam Levine is doing the singing instead of Mick Jagger.
Remember, you're talking to a guy who saw Queen with Adam Lambert.
I know. But you knew it was Adam Lambert because you knew Freddie Mercury was dead. If you're just coming off the street, and you see a Batman movie, and we assume because we watch all the trailers and we watch all the behind the scenes stuff that people would know. But there's a lot of people who go, oh, there's a new Batman movie, let's go see it. And if they walked in and Batman was suddenly played by Michael B. Jordan, and because he's playing Luke Fox version of Batman, you'd get a lot of negative feedback on that.
But if they tell me they're making a Batman and the Signal movie, and I walk in and it's Luke Fox, I don't complain because I know what I was seeing. If they tell me they're making a Batman Beyond movie, then isn't it incumbent on me to know what Batman Beyond is?
No, because you see the word Batman. I'm saying that your general audience is going to see Batman. They're going to go expect to see Bruce Wayne in the cape and cowl, not a very old Bruce Wayne and a young guy taking his place. Now, you could set that up, but I'm saying that's not what David Zaslav's trying to do. You could absolutely do a Batman movie. David Zaslav is not going to do a Batman Beyond movie, but you could do one. But, David Zaslav is counting on the brands of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman to bring people in. So he's going to insist that they are as on the money to what people expect as possible. It's going to be Bruce Wayne. It's going to be Clark Kent. It's going to be Diana Prince. And I'm not saying that this is the right thing. I'm saying it's the business thing to do.
Oh, just sure. Like that gets me back to my question, Dan.
Yes.
Does the success of a franchise give you more room to abandon the well-known characters and tell good stories or tell comic accurate stories or whatever? Or does it hem you in because the success is so incumbent on doing what you've always done that you don't have room to expand? And you're going to talk about that with Star Wars, right? Like, you're talking about, can you go back to simplistic storytelling?
Right.
After these, the success of Star Wars has clearly allowed them to move into this more complex thing and having a level of success. Now, is there going to be an expectation one way or the other? And how do you?
But look at all the backlash that Marvel is getting for Phase 4. Because they're replacing all of the franchise characters. Somebody put up a graphic that showed the 8 major Avengers and how there is now a female version of each one, a replacement version of each one. And you're hearing a lot of backlash because, people want to go see Captain America. And I don't necessarily think the whole backlash is because they replaced him with Anthony Mackie or that the new Captain America is black. I think part of it is because people want to go and see Chris Evans as Captain America. It's what they've seen for 3 movies and 4 Avengers movies, and that's what they want.
But the question then becomes, and we can talk about this. You're going to take a break when I interrupted you, but we can talk about this after if you want. The question then becomes, though, do people know what they want, or do they know what they expect? They expect Chris Evans as America's ass, right?
Yes.
Captain America.
Yeah.
But if you give them a good Anthony Mackie as Captain America, will they then come to expect and want that? So the question is is this the McDonald's method or the Burger King method? Can you have it your way, or are you ordering off the menu?
Fair enough. All right, let's take a break and we'll come back and answer that question.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales. Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with two comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Hi, I'm Sue Lee, and I'm working on Carmilla the First Vampire, coming out by Burger Books with Amy Chu, and you're watching The Experience.
We are back. It is the Dan Wickline Show, and we are talking, well, we were talking about Marvel and DC and making changes and what fans expect. And that does go into our main topic of the day, which is, can Star Wars go back to the more simplistic storytelling that it's been doing over the years after a series like Andor? And it all kind of ties together, because you're playing to fans' expectations or audience expectations. I think that you have to be cautious when doing stuff like that. I think Marvel has put out 28 movies now and a handful of TV series, and they've kind of earned the capital to be able to change things. And the changes they're making are somewhat story-driven. Like, okay, nobody thinks that Chadwick Boseman wouldn't still be Black Panther had he not died. They wouldn't have made that change yet. But Chris Evans wanted to walk away. Robert Downey Jr. wanted to walk away. So they're making those changes, and it makes sense, okay? And they're following the comics in a lot of cases, too. It's not like any of these changes don't happen in the comics. So I think in that case, it's necessity when you're building a cohesive universe and you want to keep the cohesive universe going, you need to make the changes. But you're going to get some backlash from it. because there are fans out there who don't read the comics, who don't know that both Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson at one point become Captain America. They just want Chris Evans. That's what they go to see a Captain America for. They want, Robert Downey Jr. in the Iron Man suit. They don't know who Ironheart is. They don't care. And you're going to get that with certain fan base, with Batman and Superman and stuff. But the difference is that DC hasn't had a continuing streak of successful movies to make that. Like if they suddenly swapped out Aquaman, I think people would be a little upset. Or Wonder Woman, even Henry Cavill. But I think you go to see Superman movies, you expect to see Clark Kent and Lois Lane, and that's pretty much straightforward there.
See,
station everyone.
What's up, John? I see. My thing is this, and I'm with you so far. I 100% agree. I think Marvel has earned the right because of their continued high level of production.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the movies they've done have all been good. To be able to tell a story that they want to tell that isn't around the characters that the fans think they want. I don't necessarily agree. I don't necessarily think that DC has done that.
Yes.
If you replace Jason Momoa as Aquaman, people are going to be mad because you've replaced Jason Momoa, not because there's a new Aquaman. They're not mad that you've replaced Grant Gustin with Ezra Miller. So I don't think it has so much to do with that, right? But at the same time, if you tell me you're making a Superman movie and I show up expecting Clark Kent and I get Jonathan Kent,
mm-hmm.
because I don't trust DC, I'm going to be disappointed by that choice. So I think there's a level of, and this is what we were talking about, right? I don't necessarily think the fans know what they want. They just know what they expect. And so, like I said, they expect Captain America to show up and they expect it to be Chris Evans.
Yeah.
If Captain America shows up and all of a sudden it's Chris Pine because we're running out of Chris's here, people are going to be a little taken aback. But if it's a good movie, I don't think it's going to matter so much.
Well, but see, that's the thing is if it's still Steve Rogers.
Right.
I think it's when you make a switch to who is the characters becomes the problem.
Right.
And that's when you're going to lose your more casual viewer.
That was a problem when Jane Foster became Thor in the comic book shops. People didn't understand that there have been other people who have been Thor before. It hasn't always just been Thor. It's other people have wielded the hammer and have had the power and therefore become Thor. It's the fans don't know what they don't know. And so as a result, there's backlash that is often misplaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking before the show about how I no longer consider myself a part of the Star Wars fandom because of the way Star Wars fans have chosen to comport themselves.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of that has to do with Star Wars fans know what they expect. They don't necessarily know what they want. And when they don't get what they expect, they behave the same way a small child would behave when they don't get what they expect. So that's what kind of led me to this question that I was asking. And I think you're right on track there that DC has to earn the right. And I think they have to do it with the mainline characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Snyder cut was an incredible mistake. Because it's not someone who'll be back in working for DC at any point. So now we have these characters set up by this person that we can no longer use. It's like when you fire a builder on your house, sure, the studs are there, but a new builder is going to have to come in and refigure everything out.
See, I don't agree with you because I look at Thor and your first Thor movie was done by Kenneth Branagh. Your second one was done by Alan Taylor. Now, after The Dark World, there was a chance there wasn't going to be another Thor movie, but Kevin Feige is the, oh, you didn't like that? Well, I'm going to double down on it guy.
Right.
So he just went a different direction, but he kept the entire cast.
Right. That's what I'm saying, is that you still have the architect and you still have the studs, which are your actors in this case.
Yeah.
But the new director has to figure out what's going on and what they're going to do. It's the same as, like I said, firing a builder from your house.
Mhm.
If they'd have brought back Kenneth Branagh, the third Thor movie would have been a lot more like the first Thor movie.
Right. Which I
So
would have been fine with.
I would have been better with it than Thor 2. Can we all agree Thor 2's worst Thor movie?
No, I'm going to say Thor 4 was the worst Thor movie.
Which one was Thor 4?
Love and Thunder.
Oh, I disagree. Just because Zachary Levi made the second Thor movie unwatchable for me.
He's in it for so little.
I know, but he made such a big deal about how he's in Thor. Anyway, but when Taika Waititi took over,
Mhm.
he had to figure out where he's going with this character and what they're doing, even though the plans are still there and the bones are still there.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that the Zack Snyder movie being released means that now they've got certain things in place that they have to figure out how to work with. So that's what I mean by, while that movie might have been good, it shouldn't count towards a successful run, because it doesn't really stand anywhere. It's kind of over here.
Yeah. Well, see, that's one of the things James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to have to figure out is what is their starting point? Is it the theatrical cut of Justice League, which more people saw, or is it the Snyder cut, or do they just kind of go, yeah, we don't remember those, we're just keeping the same actors moving forward, and where Marvel, they know a lot of people didn't like Thor: The Dark World.
Right.
But instead of forgetting about it or pretending it didn't exist, like the Hulk movie with Eric Bana, or not Eric Bana, Ed Norton, both of them have become bigger and bigger importance in this phase. I mean, Thor: The Dark World became a huge part of Endgame, and now the Hulk stuff, Ross is back, Abomination is back, the Leader's coming back. So even though there are movies out there that people don't like as much, there's still, Kevin Feige, man, he is the double down king.
Right. He's the architect.
Yeah.
DC has not had an architect. And so, again, like I said, when you look at DC successes, the Harley Quinn animated series, the first maybe Harley Quinn movie, not necessarily the Birds of Prey movie, but the other one, first Wonder Woman, and then the stuff that's kind of existed in their own universe, Matt Reeves, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
There has not been a successful DC movie inside the box that David Zaslav is trying to hem them into right now.
Well,
in a long, long time.
It really depends on what they consider the box. See, I look at it as Aquaman moving forward. Aquaman and Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one, I think have been successful. And I think Black Adam it's been successful. So I think that's how we can look at the box.
But I would say those are outside of the David Zaslav Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman box.
They are, but I think that's more of a decision on what the tone of that universe is going to be. And I think the Batman is in itself its own thing. But that's where it kind of contradicts what Zaslav is saying, is that he thinks it should all be cohesive. So unless he's bringing Robert Pattinson and Joaquin Phoenix into the Henry Cavill part of it, then he's going to have multiple versions.
Right. And I think that DC needs to do something to prove its metal here.
Yeah.
With something. And here's where I think they need to do it. Here's my pitch. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
they need to do 52. Or
The new
they
52.
need to do Identity Crisis. Because now, all of a sudden, you can explain away, right, these other Batmen, these other Supermen, these other whoever, as being from Earth X, Earth 2, Earth 4, whatever. You can explain the multiverse relatively quickly, and you can explain away actors and characters you don't want anymore by saying they're not from the main universe, and then just reset with, I think you probably would take 2 movies.
Well, I think that's what Flash is going to set up. Is I think it's going to work like Flashpoint or Crisis and give us that fresh start. Is what I think the plan is.
I don't think Flashpoint is the place to do it, because I don't think it absolves quite enough. But I think I think it would be a good first half of whatever I'm envisioning, right?
Yeah. So
if you do Flashpoint, then you do the button. You know, the hey, this is where all the Watchmen stuff falls into place. Okay, maybe. But I think it's definitely got to be a 2-parter that absolves them of all of the Christopher Nolan stuff.
Okay. Tricky says, I'd be happy with every DC movie being an Elseworld story. Cast can always be changing. Yeah, but that's not what Zaslav wants to do. But yeah, that's not a bad idea. Brady Singh says, a new version of Flashpoint may be in order. That's, like I said, I think that's what the Flash movie is going to be. We have a bunch of different votes on which is the worst Thor movie. So it seems universally the one that's not hated is Ragnarok.
And that's the 3rd best Thor movie for me.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I love the first one because to me, that's what the Walt Simonson and the Jack Kirby Thors were. That's the most Thor to me. Now, do I think Ragnarok's a good movie? Yeah, it's a fun movie. But to me, Thor is more the Kenneth Branagh one. And I think Love and Thunder was just a bad movie.
I went back and looked at my notes because I write down what I've rated everything just so people can't be like, you said something different last time. None of the Thors have scored above a 50% from me. So like a 2.5 out of 5. That first Thor movie is only like a 2.5 out of 5.
That's 50%.
Yeah. Like I said, none of them have scored very highly for me, but Kenneth Branagh was best Thor. And do you remember, Dan, when you saw the first one, did you see it in a regular theater or did you go see it in IMAX or we have Cinemark XD around here?
I'm a regular theater guy. I don't do IMAX.
It was the first movie I'd ever seen in 3D. And man, when they showed you Asgard in 3D and I'd never seen it on that scale, it was like an emotional moment. Because I'd never seen something look quite that way in a movie before. So that's why that one scored so high.
Yeah. Gorkenstein says, I rewatched Phase 1 last year. Thor 1 hasn't aged well, in my opinion. And Thor 2 was better than I realized. Fair. I do tend to go back and rewatch some of these and find that I like them better than I remembered on some of them or a little less on others. So,
yeah, that was what happened with me with Black Adam. First time I saw it, I thought, oh, this is great. And the second time I saw it, I'm like, still great, but less great. So.
Well, so let's flip it over to Star Wars. Do you think that right now Tony Gilroy is doing this very deep, very thought-provoking series in the Star Wars universe? It's very adult drama, similar to Rogue One. That's his story too. It's the same character. It's setting up the same universe. This is like a prequel to Rogue One. It is unlike every other series in Star Wars because most of Star Wars is written, like a children's movie. You know, it's like Doctor Who in a sense. You know, yeah, there's bad guys and creatures and stuff, but the bottom line is that the good guys wear white, the bad guys wear black, and the line of how different it gets. Yeah, Empire Strikes Back got a little dark at the end, but then we followed it up with Ewoks, where what we're seeing on Andor is much deeper, is much more serious. Do you see that having a lasting? Can that have a lasting effect on Star Wars going forward, or is this going to be an outlier, and they're going to go back to what they're doing right now, which is the little kid and the mentor series in everything?
Lone Wolf and Cub isn't exactly a not complex story. I mean, it isn't the most complex story. It isn't Clockwork Orange, but like, it's not so A, B, C, D kind of storytelling. But I will say this, and this is my. I think the Star Wars universe needs to tread lightly. I think they're victim of three things: a very nostalgia-driven connection for people,
Mm-hmm.
a insane release schedule and release history, and a bitchy fan base. So if you abandon the nostalgia, the other two segments are going to be angry at you. If you release something in, I don't know, a linear order, instead of releasing the middle and then the beginning, people are going to be like, wait, this isn't Star Wars. And at the same time, the fans are never going to be happy unless Luke's almost making out with his sister and Han Solo's running around with a giant dog. Right? They're never going to be happy. You cannot make Star Wars fans happy. It's impossible.
Okay, but it seems that Star Wars fans are happier. They bitch more about the nostalgia. You look at Rogue One, everybody seemed to love it. You look at Solo, which most people I know now go back and they go, that was actually a pretty good movie, but a lot of the bitching because it wasn't Harrison Ford.
Right.
Or that's how he got his last name, or, the nostalgia stuff is what bugged them. You look at, Andor, it's getting praise, but it's also getting ignored by a lot of people. But you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi, and people are bitching about it because it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense, or that doesn't work, but everybody wanted that. So when they come out and they do what fans want is when they seem to complain.
Right, but when they come out and they don't do what fans want, the fans also complain.
But if they do something completely unique, they don't complain. They may not watch it, but they don't complain.
Right. So that's why I say Star Wars has to tread carefully, right? You can make stuff that people see, but then you have to deal with the fallout. Or you can make stuff that people don't see and people love it. Those are your options.
Yeah.
At this point, I think the best thing, and this is, I've not seen Andor yet. I think it's incredibly telling that they're going to show it on ABC. They're going to take 2 hours in prime time, Thanksgiving Day, and show it on ABC. That's saying something.
Yeah.
About the quality of this series. So I think what they have to do, and having not seen it, I don't know, maybe this is it, is find a way to bridge that gap. And the thing that I remember doing it was the Clone Wars cartoon show. Right? Like the animated stuff has been the thing that seems to, the people who don't like it either don't watch it, but there's such a small population that don't like it that most Star Wars fans have seen it. And at the same time, it hit all the nostalgia buttons. So the nostalgia heads were like, yay, it's exactly what I wanted. And I think that's what they have to do. And maybe this is doing it.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I think The Mandalorian is the one that hits, it's new stuff, but it hits the nostalgia buttons. And I think that's why The Mandalorian has been so successful. I think the Boba Fett one is that nobody really knew what the hell Boba Fett was. His success was him being a mystery.
Right.
But with Andor, there's very little nostalgia in it. There's very few Easter eggs. This is pretty much just a straightforward drama, And as I said to you, this is the Shawshank Redemption of Star Wars. This is a really excellent story that I never plan on watching again. It is intense. You're constantly on the edge of your seat, but it's also not one that I'm going, oh, what's going to happen next? It's more like, oh, there's another episode. Oh, my God.
If at some point a character doesn't dig up a small tin under a tree somewhere on Tatooine, we've made a mistake.
He's never been to Tatooine.
Well, I can't think of another Star Wars planet name that sounds vaguely like Zihuatanejo.
We have done 10 episodes and they haven't even gone near Tatooine.
Okay, but I'm still talking about Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
Dan, okay, in the comments, how many times have you seen Shawshank Redemption? Like, how many of you have seen it one time and never needed to watch it again? Or how many of you are like me and have seen it thousands of times because at one point it seemed like it was the only movie TBS owned?
See, I thought the only movie TBS owned was Major League.
No.
Every time I would turn on the TV, it was Major League.
At least a dozen times from Ed. Jay says 4 brothers. I don't understand that. Rubenstein is one time.
Yep.
He says that Dathomir. Okay, if they don't dig up a tin under a tree on Dathomir. Brainy just types random numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that movie, and I've seen it so many times.
What's so ironic is I saw Shawshank Redemption at a bar when I was at a Comic-Con up in the Bay Area.
All right.
It was just on, and that's when I watched it, was hanging out at the bar.
I've been to the prison. Because they shot it at Marion Correctional, which is about an hour and a half from me.
Yeah.
And it's haunted, so you can go there in October and go through like haunted prison tours. It's pretty great.
So, okay. So, do you think Star Wars needs to go back to do you think Andor will have a lasting effect? Do you think putting out something with really good writing, a really tight story with really passionate monologues and stuff is going to change the rest of the Star Wars universe?
I don't.
You think that John and Dave are just going to do another Mandalorian series and then we're going to get Ahsoka and just move on?
No, I don't. I think you're going to see it fork. I think you're going to see them do kind of, and this is an interesting analogy, actually, that I'm going to make. Kind of what Marvel has done with their movie TV stuff, right? Where the movies are paint with a broad brush, appeal to every schmo, comic book fans be damned, we're going to make a movie that doesn't matter to you. And then their television shows are going to be very specific, very correct, very accurate, and are going to appeal to those people.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see a fork.
No, I think you're right. But I think there's a reason for that, because I think when somebody's paying for Disney Plus and it's Tuesday night and they're flipping channels or looking around trying to find something, and they come across Moon Knight that they've never tried or Andor, they're more likely to give it a shot than they are actually specifically go out to a movie theater. Brady says, correct. Star Wars on Disney Plus has proved that you can tell good stories in the universe, not just rely on special effects. Exactly.
Right. I think this is going to be a door to a much more in-depth Star Wars conversation for the people who want to have it.
Yeah.
And then for the people who just want to have their, I was 12 years old living in my mother's basement nostalgia itch scratched, they will do bigger one-shot movies or specials or that kind of thing.
Yeah. So Werpenstein says Braveheart was that type of movie for him, loved it, and never watched it again. And John said
all the way through. I know I've seen it all, but never like in one sitting.
And John says he's only seen once the Shawshank. It's like The Green Mile. It's another one of those movies that you only watch once.
See, I've seen The Green Mile a whole bunch of times too, but I also was in the play.
I think what we're learning here is you're just different.
No, I will say this. I watched it a bunch of times because I played the Michael Clark Duncan character in the play in high school. So I watched it a bunch of times to kind of learn the vibe. So I wouldn't have watched it more than once if I hadn't had to do it.
Yeah, The Green Mile is another great movie, but again, it's there are certain movies that are great movies, but you don't want to. The piano. No, I hated The Piano actually.
Captain Corelli's Mandolin is one of those for me.
There you go. I was thinking of another one. Schindler's List. Nobody wants to watch Schindler's List twice.
That's fair.
You know?
Amistad.
Yeah.
And the most recent one for me that was I'll watch it once and never see it again was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, there's some movies that are just like that way. It's like, it was great. I'm glad I watched it. Never again. Not buying the DVD, or the Blu-ray, or
also Endgame.
Yeah, I'll watch clips.
I know how it goes. I'm good.
Yeah, I'll watch clips of Endgame. If I'm coming along and I see a beat up Captain America suddenly reach up to his ear and here's "on your left," I'm going to watch that, whatever that clip is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or Thor about to get killed and suddenly the hammer moves just a little. I'm sticking around for that clip. But the rest of it, I don't need to see them sitting around the therapy session with Joe Russo and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where I'll watch Winter Soldier anytime it pops up. That's just a great movie. Oh, come on, it's a classic spy movie like All the President's Men or 3 Days of the Condor or Marathon Man.
I've seen it. I don't need to see it again. Although, it's funny. I can count on one hand the amount of movies I've seen more than 5 or 6 times.
Uh-huh.
And I can probably count on the other hand the number of movies I've seen 5 or 6 times. Most movies I watch and then never watch again.
Okay, so we're running late here, but there's nobody on after us.
Yeah, we're good.
Of the Marvel movies, if you're sitting in the studio, gonna just want something for the background, and you have a bunch of Marvel movies to choose from, which Marvel movie do you put on and just let run?
Guardians.
Really?
If for no other reason than I won't recognize the dialogue and I'll just hear the soundtrack.
Okay.
I would say this. I would be just as likely to put on the Guardians soundtrack as the Guardians movie.
For me, it's the first Doctor Strange.
That would be a choice as well. The first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Captain America: The First Avenger for me. But really, for me, the rewatchability of those movies is the soundtrack, right? It's the music, especially the Guardians movies. If I had to watch one because of the content, I would probably just sit in silence.
What's funny is you talk about soundtracks. There is one movie I will put on and listen because of the soundtrack, which is a very strange one, which is Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing. There is some steel guitar use in there that is awesome.
I have that one on vinyl.
I have it on disc, but and the one that I have a hard time with because of the soundtrack, even though I love the movie, the Batman.
Oh, sure.
There's only 2 songs in the entire movie. That the horrible Nirvana song. I'm not a Nirvana fan,
right?
And that is just a bad song.
Mm-hmm.
To play it over, or the minor key version of Ave Maria they keep playing.
Yeah. So the movies, like we were talking about, movies I've seen more than 5 or 6 times. It's the Blues Brothers. It's Major League. It's movies like, and I don't count like A Christmas Story because I only ever watch that at Christmas, but I watch it every year. It's movies like that where it's the soundtrack is important and it's a fun movie that you don't have to think about. But no superhero movies ever.
Movies that I tend like, movies that if they're on, I just stick. Major League is one of them. The Replacements with Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman. Silverado. Silverado is probably my all-time favorite Western because it's that classic Western feel. It's got such an amazing cast that I could watch it dozens and dozens of times.
We just got the Grit Network on our cable, which is all Westerns.
Nice.
And at night they don't have a lot of the spaghetti Westerns, the Clint Eastwood Westerns, but they've got a lot of great older ones. And I wound up staying up till 4 a.m. the one night watching Duel at Diablo. Like, just because it was on. So like I'm with you, but like for me it's Blues Brothers, it's Major League. Demolition Man.
Demolition Man.
And I catch the first 20 minutes, I gotta watch the whole thing.
For me on Silverado, I was actually just thinking about this the other night. I would love to write some comics based off of that universe. I would love to tell the story of John Cleese's Sheriff. Why the hell is there a British guy in the Southwest as a sheriff? How did that happen?
Right.
Or what happened to Mal or the brothers or just, Peyton,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would, or what happened in the beginning, that got that sent Scott Glenn's character to jail. A little more depth on that versus the McClintocks. And I would love to play in that universe, but that's the Kasdans, and I don't know if they would ever let me play in it. Then, of course, there's the other franchise I would love to play in is the Frighteners. But then I got to get Peter Jackson to let me have it.
If I had any skill as a writer at all, I'd want to write a Tremors movie.
Tremors would be fun. That would. So, all right, guys, we went a little over, but it was a good conversation, and I appreciate you guys sticking around. Ed says, I think the movie I've watched the most is Christmas Vacation. Good choice.
They're doing TBS, TNT, they're doing 3 24-hour marathons this year. 24 Hours of Elf, 24 Hours of A Christmas Story, and 24 Hours of Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. Aren't they also doing a new Christmas Story, like a sequel?
It's a new sequel that's coming out called A Christmas Story Christmas.
With Peter Billingsley coming back.
Yeah, it's all the original cast members.
Nice.
Written by Peter Billingsley, co-written by... Oh, God. My brain says say Jon Favreau, but it's not Jon Favreau. It's the other Jon Favreau kind of guy. Vince Vaughn.
Okay. Well, the Swingers guys, yeah.
Right. I couldn't think of the one from Swingers.
I just love the fact that the kid from Christmas Story grew up to be a producer for Marvel and ended up shaving his head to do the box of scraps scene in Iron Man. Then ended up working with Mysterio and now has all the information on Peter Parker and all that stuff. It's like, that's the guy that could have put his eye out.
Well, and some of the things that the other kids from that movie have gone on to do are colorful as well.
I really think they need to bring back his character as a major villain, but he needs an eye patch.
There was a BB gun accident?
Yeah, never explained. But just
when I ask, he just keeps saying there was a BB gun accident. Or mutters under his breath, Red Rider. So.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap it up here.
Hey, head over to comicshoppingexperience.com. Check out our new website.
Yeah. Yep.
I worked real hard to code that.
Mm-hmm. He did. Wix. Yeah, I'm old school. I used to write, websites from HTML code.
More of it's HTML than I would like to admit, Dan. I had to write a lot of it myself and then import it in there and fit it. So
cool. So, yep, they have pictures of us up and everything, except for Kyle's is animated, or is
it's true
caricature. Yep. So's Nick's, but
it's true too.
All right, guys, we will stick around tonight.
ComicShoppingExperience.com, Ed. And hey, make sure you go check out the picture of Jay.
Jay's picture is awesome. Speaking of Jay and Kyle and I will be back tonight on In Stores This Week at 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Or no, flip that. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. But before that will be Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen and the crew at Space Cadets. And we're going to give you guys an idea of what comics you should pick up this week or not. There are definitely some books that, well...
Definitely some knots.
Yes, definitely some knots. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you in a few hours.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.